Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I'm sure by now everybody must have heard the news that the SEC indeed is appealing the ruling from Judge Torres and the SEC v. Ripple case. It's probably surprising about 0% of humans. Now, shortly after the news broke on Wednesday that this was indeed the case, I put out a video and I was able to get some perspectives from some of the attorneys that quickly also Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse had some choice words in regards to this happening, so I shared some of that on my channel shortly after the news broke. At that point, when I published that video, though, Attorney Jeremy Hogan, had not yet said anything about that. It wasn't until a little bit after I published that video that he shared a fairly lengthy post on exactly what he thinks is going on here, the implications. And I'll just tell you this at the outset of the video. Attorney Hogan thinks that this is a gigantic mistake for the SEC. And I'll not be surprised if indeed, when this is all said and done, the SEC, they find out, as the youths say. So, anyway, I'm just going to share with you, almost exclusively in this video, what Attorney Hogan had to say in response to all this. But, wow, what a bunch of nonsense this is. But before we go further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And so he shared the news, and Attorney Hogan wrote, "Oh lordy, do I have to start making videos again now?" Other thoughts below. And actually you do, Attorney Hogan. You are required. You're required by the XRP community to, yes, resume the publication of videos on your YouTube channel. We miss you. Come on, man. Drop your knowledge on us in video format. But since he's not doing that, I'm still going to help spread the word here by getting his thoughts out to you. And so here's what he had to say. He wrote, initial thoughts on the SEC appeal. And he's got 7 things listed, so we're going to go through these one by one. He says, number 1, big mistake by the SEC. It will appeal the programmatic sales ruling, and if it wins, it will get more money from Ripple and have protected no one. And let me just pause right here to make sure everybody understands what that means. When we're talking about programmatic sales, we're talking specifically Ripple's sales of XRP outside of on-demand liquidity. We're talking about on exchanges here. And so these still are blind transactions. You could have bought from Ripple and you wouldn't have even known it because it could have just been on an exchange, right? Like, who knows? Whatever the exchange may be, it doesn't matter. And so Ripple themselves called those transactions programmatic sales. Ripple came up with that term. That's the term that was then used in the lawsuit, since that's what it was called. And then that's what the SEC also used as a result in the lawsuit, in the initial complaint, in fact. And so that's what we're referencing here. And of course, the transactions being cited again, specifically from Ripple. We're not talking about transactions between people like you and I on cryptocurrency exchanges. In fact, that has nothing. That's not what the lawsuit was even about. This is a lawsuit specifically against Ripple, and so it's about the facts and circumstances surrounding Ripple's transactions, not yours and mine. Ripple's, right? And so that's why, on top of that, XRP has regulatory clarity. But for that reason, and then understanding that secondary market transactions, as it pertains to you and I, the SEC can't appeal that. That's the reason that we don't really have a whole lot to worry about, in my estimation, anyway. I think it's pretty clear here. He also then says, Ripple will raise its blue sky law issue, and if it wins, the SEC's ability to regulate the entire crypto space is essentially destroyed. Not a good calculation of risk by the SEC. It would make a poor stock trader. Well, that's certainly correct. And so I don't know that I remember all the specifics around the blue sky law. I know that there were certain things that Ripple was arguing as it pertains to things like post-sale obligations with transactions based on blue sky laws. And by the way, a blue sky law is a state law in the United States that regulates the offering and sale of securities to protect the public from fraud. And so before we had a precedent on a federal level, it was on a state-by-state basis. So state law was used as legal precedent before the Securities Act of 1933 was passed on a federal level, right? And it was based on those blue sky laws. So anyway, that's what he was referencing there. And then he said, number 2, this is an appeal by right, not like when the SEC tried to appeal before. The trial judge can't reject the appeal. Okay, so you may recall about a year ago, the SEC, they filed for an interlocutory appeal, which is basically just an expedited appeal. And they were shut on down by that because Judge Torres didn't think that made sense, and she just said no. She bitch smacked him on down. Here, that cannot be done. Now, I don't think it's going to matter for all sorts of reasons. I think that Judge Torres is, the way that she drafted this thing, like, it's pretty airtight here, to be honest with you. But still, the judge can't reject the appeal, so that is true. Third point from Attorney Hogan. The SEC is very, very likely to lose, both statistically and based on the fact-heavy way the judge wrote her opinion. Yeah, and so I'll just pause a note here, and Attorney Deaton brought this up, and I was actually literally just mentioning this. Actually, I probably mentioned it in my video where I first was highlighting that this appeal was even happening here. But Attorney Deaton pointed out that Judge Torres ruled on one of the factors in Howey. And in order for something to pass Howey test, meaning yes, it is an illegal securities transaction, you have to satisfy all the prongs of the Howey test. And so Deaton pointed out that it was only the third prong that Judge Torres cited in her decision. She said, well, yeah, and that's all she needed to do, by the way, because again, if that prong's not satisfied, you don't even need to talk about the other ones because you have to satisfy all. So if one's not satisfied, that is enough. So if there is an appeal, and well, now we know there is, if this gets kicked back on down, then she can just rule on the other prongs. And so either way, she's still going to get what she wants. And so it's brilliantly drafted in that way. Anyway, and then Attorney Hogan says, this is point number 4, even if the SEC were to quote-unquote win on appeal, it's very, very likely just a matter of money. Nothing would change as to XRP and its use by Ripple. I actually just noticed that he's got 2 number 4s here. So he's actually got 8 points, but 2 of them are both labeled number 4. I didn't catch that the first couple times I read this. Anyway, so point 4, number 2. He wrote, in a couple weeks, we'll know what issues the SEC is appealing, and then it must file its first brief by mid-December. It will not and cannot be appealing that XRP is not a security. Importantly, watch for whether the SEC is appealing the injunction. Okay, so on the point of XRP, not being able to appeal whether or not XRP itself is a security, Attorney Hogan is the first attorney I saw explain why, and it was right after XRP. We had XRP Victory Day, July 13th of last year. XRP found to not be a security, and he noted that what the judge cited, it was dicta, D-I-C-T-A, so it's not something that she was technically called upon to rule on, but she added it in, and as a result, that's not something you literally procedurally, you can't appeal that. On top of that, the SEC on their own, they wrote, and I've shown this many times on my channel, that they stated, of course, hey, XRP, they said, hey, it's just computer code with no inherent value. Yeah, we're not going to appeal that. And I'm paraphrasing, but the SEC did communicate that, and I want to say it was maybe the middle of August of last year, somewhere thereabout, or they wrote that to Judge Torres. So even the SEC's like, yeah, of course we're not disputing whether or not XRP is a security, right? And then as far as the injunction that was cited by Hogan, that would just be the SEC and their desire to make sure that Ripple is, or cannot violate the login, the Section 5 violations again. So that's what was being referenced there. Then we have point number 5. A ruling from the appellate court won't happen until late 2025/early 2026. I posted it would take until summer 2025 a couple months ago. I was wrong about that. Sorry. We forgive you, Attorney Hogan. We forgive you. Honestly, it's not crazily off anyway. And I also extra don't care because well, first of all, I appreciate what you do, but also because it's not going to impact anything for the typical XRP holder. This all matters if you're Ripple, and only Ripple. It does not matter for anyone else, and I think that not enough people were clear on that right out the gate. And then he has point number 6 here. I refuse to believe that Attorney Gruel announcing he's leaving the SEC the same day the appeal is filed is just chance. But I'm kooky like that. Well, I don't think that's particularly kooky, and I'm not going to spend much time on this, but this is what he was referencing. Here is a headline from CoinDesk. SEC Enforcement Director Gerber Gruhl is leaving the agency. And so isn't it kind of funny? You know, you think about what happened in December 2020, the last day for Jay Clayton. Ripple gets sued, and then as this guy's walking out the door now, Gerber Gruhl, last day on October 11th. You know, he's just like, here we go, now the appeal. It's a little peculiar, is it not? And so he was the SEC's director of enforcement. Well, technically he still is. He's just stepping down and departing the agency, according to a press release. Literally on the same day we get word of the appeal. Weird timing, right? What in the ever-loving hell? Oh, it's completely ridiculous. And then his last point here, number 7. The only hope of this all being over soon is if there's new leadership at the SEC. If Trump becomes president again, I will humbly accept the role of Director of Enforcement and refocus the agency on protecting you from scams, frauds, and thieves. Well, that would be a dream come true. What a just disgusting agency from the top on down. But, you know, with a different administration, maybe things actually can change here. You need somebody who isn't anti-crypto in charge of the SEC, somebody who would actually have interest in, you know, the SEC's mission, which is to protect investors and help to ensure that there's the capital formation in United States markets. You know, remember those things? That's not what the SEC is really focusing on here. So here we are. So the great analysis from him. And so I just want to reiterate, none of this will matter to the typical XRP holder, and that's what I want to keep screaming until everybody knows it. We don't need to be afraid about this. And even if you're a Ripple, do you need to be that worried? From what Attorney Hogan said here, it seemed, based on what he wrote here, that it could just be an instance where even if this doesn't go well, that it's just more of like another monetary type of penalty or something changes there. And we won't know. But also, only about 10% of appeals actually end up getting flipped. 10%. So statistics not on the side of the SEC, and certainly the arguments are not either. So this is stupid, but frankly, I'm not particularly worried about it. But anyways, good to hear from Attorney Hogan, and I hope he's not just teasing us about making new videos. I would love to see some new videos from Attorney Hogan. But anyway, I'll wrap up here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.